It is 4:30. We'll go ahead and call the February 7th, 2022 meeting to order. We'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by invocation by Chief Steve Bryan. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's bow our heads. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the sunshine and all the blessings that you give us, Lord. We just ask that you look over this proceeding tonight. We ask that you bless each and every item that comes before this council. And we just ask that each one of those is for the betterment of the citizens of our community. Thank you for each one of our public servants that's here today. Thank you for the willingness to serve and the willingness to step up. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Can we have a roll call?
Yes. Misty Cavanaugh. Here. Tony Space.
Here.
Adam Townsend.
Here.
Amy Cruz.
Present.
Frank Stevenson.
Here.
Chad Mincer.
Here.
Mayor, we do have a quorum.
All right, so off the agenda just for a moment, we're going to talk about the ice storm and give you all kind of an update on what that looked like and kind of a recap of what an amazing job that our city team did during this past week. Our electric department had a total number of outages of 800. Service calls were 750 with the average outage of around 2 hours. Public Works had 242 hours. They spent 2,304 miles plowing and salting and going back and forth on the streets. They used 487 tons of salt to be able to do that. Dispatch had 460 calls, and out of those, they have an average of 255, so you can see that there was a significant increase in the 911 calls. 13 fires, or 13 fire incidents. There were 2 of those that were actual fires. Average response time was 5 minutes and 4 seconds in the middle of an ice storm. That's an incredible response time. PD had 265 calls for service with an average response time of 4 minutes. I wanted to give you all that information because it's an outstanding job that our city team did to provide excellent service to the citizens during an ice storm. So I want to make sure that we give credit where credit's due, and we're so thankful that everybody worked together. We saw some of the fire department doing things that they didn't typically do, and we saw some of the police officers doing things that they didn't typically do, and everybody working together as a united front. So just wanted to give a big shout out to the city team for what they did during the ice storm. Yeah, absolutely. The first order of business is the approval of minutes, and it's for our regular meeting from January the 18th.
The regular meeting of the Madisonville City Council was held on January the 18th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. in the City Council chambers. It was called to order by Mayor Kevin Cotton with the pledge and the invocation by Councilmember Tony Space. The mayor and all council members were present for the meeting. We had approval of the previous minutes of January 3rd, 2022. We had approval of bills and payroll. We had a department report for the police department and fire department. We had a new business, the discussion of metal building for police department, approval to bid. That was adopted. We had a resolution to declare lots as surplus property and advertise the bids with a minimum bid of $3,100, and that was for Hamilton Drive. We had an executive order relating to the appointment of city council committee assignments and an adjournment.
All right, are there any corrections to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next, we'll move on to the approval of bills and payroll.
Yes, we have the total general fund of $115,884.49. The total sanitation of $62,115.99. Total electric utility of $245,968.55. Total water filter of $130,697.38. Total wastewater collection and treatment is $254,763.35. We have an estimated biweekly payroll, governmental of $52,748, police of $147,455, fire of $153,482, transportation of $32,730, cemetery $8,733, park $15,795, sanitation $41,939, light fund $82,747, water and filter $53,374, wastewater treatment of $16,932, wastewater collection of $38,615, for a total estimated biweekly payroll of $644,552.
Do I have a motion to approve the bills and payroll?
So move.
Do a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no motion passes. Next, we have new business. As most of you were, we were pleasantly surprised and grateful for the bids that we had come in for our lots, our surplus lots this time. Our first one is to accept the surplus lot bid for 375 Park Row.
Whereas the city of Madisonville opened bids for a surplus lot located at 375 Park Road, Madisonville, Kentucky on Monday, January 31st, 2022 at 10 a.m. And the city of Madisonville received 4 bids as follows: Lucinda Grant, $6,300, Chester Pleasant of $1,111, Nicholas Presley of $3,000, and Katie Dentley of $1,100. Whereas Lucinda Grant placed a bid of $6,300, but she has called to rescind her bid, and whereas Nicholas Presley placed the bid of $3,000, which is the next highest bid, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council accepts the bid of Nicholas Presley in the amount of $3,000.
Do I have a motion to approve the bid for the surplus lot at 375 Park Row for $3,000 to Nicholas Presley?
Move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next, we'll move on to the exception of the bid for the surplus lot at 312 Hamilton.
Whereas the city of Madisonville opened bids for a surplus lot located at 312 Hamilton, Madisonville, Kentucky on Monday, January 31st, 2022 at 10 a.m. And whereas the city of Madisonville received 6 bids as follows: Melissa Pullum of $4,300, Durwood Kavanaugh of $4,100, Brad Giffen of $8,000, Nicholas Presley of $5,100, Dan Pullen of $5,155, and Brian Hansen of $2,000. Whereas Brad Giffen placed a bid of $8,000, which is the highest bid, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council accepts the bid of Brad Giffen in the amount of $8,000.
Do I have a motion to accept the bid to Brad Giffen for $8,000 for 312 Hamilton?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next, we'll move on to 631 Silkwood.
Whereas the city of Madisonville opened bids for a surplus lot located at 631 Silkwood, Madisonville, Kentucky on Monday, January 31st, 2022 at 10 a.m. And whereas the city of Madisonville received 8 bids as follows: Lucinda Grant, $2,650, Durwood Kavanaugh of $2,700, Sidney Coleman of $2,500, Chester Pleasant of $1,511, Brad Giffen of $10,200, Nicholas Presley of $5,000, Katie Dunkley of $3,000, and Dan Pullen of $3,155. Whereas Brad Giffen replaced a bid of $10,200, which is the highest bid, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council accepts the bid of Brad Giffen in the amount of $10,200.
Do I have a motion to approve the $10,200 bid from Brad Giffen for 631 Silkwood?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the city of Madisonville to use the standard allowance for the local fiscal recovery fund as authorized by the American Rescue Plan Act.
Whereas the American Rescue Plan Act, which is also called ARPA of 2021, also called the COVID-19 Stimulus Package or American Rescue Plan, and whereas the United States Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act on March 10, 2021, and signed into law by President Joe Biden on March 11, 2021. And whereas the American Rescue Plan Act created the Local Fiscal Recovery Fund to provide funding for all cities and counties throughout the nation. And whereas the Madisonville City Council elects to use the standard allowance up to $10 million, not to exceed the city's total allowance allocation of $4,822,065.61 for identifying revenue loss within the local fiscal recovery fund as authorized by the American Rescue Plan Act. And whereas the city of Madisonville will use its local fiscal recovery funds to cover payroll and associated benefits, cost of employees providing government services as identified by the final rule by the U.S. Department of Treasury. And now therefore be it resolved that the city council hereby authorize the mayor to sign all paperwork associated with the city of Madisonville to use the standard allowance for identifying revenue loss within the local fiscal recovery fund as authorized by the American Rescue Plan Act.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the city of Madison to use the standard allowance for the local fiscal recovery fund as authorized by the American Rescue Plan Act?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? These are the payments where we receive 2.4 for this fiscal year and 2.4 for the next fiscal year. So this is the combined 4.8. All right, if there's no questions, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next, we'll move on to the fair housing resolution.
Let it be known to all persons of City of Madisonville that discrimination in the sale, rental, leasing, financing, or of housing or land to be used for construction of housing or in the provision of brokerage services because of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin is prohibited by the Title 8 of the 1968 Civil Rights Act, Federal Fair Housing Law. It is the policy of the City of Madisonville to implement programs to ensure equal opportunity in housing for all persons regardless of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988 expanded coverage to include disabled persons and families with children, and HUD 2012 regulations expanded coverage to sexual orientation or gender identity. Therefore, the City of Madisonville does hereby pass the following resolution. Be it resolved that within available resources, the City of Madisonville will assist all persons who feel that they have been discriminated against because of race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, disability, or financial status to seek equity under federal and state laws by filing a complaint with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Office of Fair Housing, and Equal Opportunity Compliance Division. Be it further resolved that the City of Madisonville shall publicize this resolution and through this publicity shall encourage owners of real estate developers and builders to become aware of their respective responsibilities and rights under the Federal Fair Housing Law and amendments in any applicable state or local laws or ordinances.
So this is a requirement from the Department of Local Government. We've applied for $200,000 worth of utility assistance, and this is part of their package in order for us to receive those $200,000 worth of utility assistance funds. Do I have a motion to approve the fair housing resolution? Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions?
I would move that we table this resolution for gathering further information about the implications and commitments that are being requested in this resolution.
This is something that has come up over the last 25 years that I've been city attorney, and we historically have not adopted a resolution of this nature, being of the opinion that there were existing state and federal laws that provided all of these protections. This is the first time that it has been presented to the council with strings attached. You either adopt the resolution and get the $200,000 worth of housing allowance, or you don't adopt it and don't get it. The only concern I had is it says that we will assist anybody in prosecuting a claim for illegal discrimination. We haven't done that in the past. I don't see any problem with it since the city is getting a benefit in this particular situation by adopting
already have a motion to approve, and then I have a motion to approve and a second, and now I have a motion for table. Do I have
To
a second
table
for the motion to
is-
table?
This language basically came from HUD. It's their language that we would be
But they're
adopting.
asking us to sign off on it. And I've just got reservations that I'm not comfortable taking that move at this point without some further discussion and examination of the question. As Joe pointed out about our role, and we're going to assist, we're going to become an advocate for somebody who makes a claim, that there are resources for them and other people that that's their job, not our job, to take a side in a matter.
Do I have a motion, do I have a second for the motion to table?
I'll second. Not any issue to put it off for a couple of weeks, is it? Not any chance of losing the 200,000, is there?
I don't know that there is a time limit to the resolution, other than receiving the funds is based off the resolution. So once the resolution is finalized, then we would be able to receive those funds.
Table it till the next meeting, couldn't we?
I have a motion and a second to table. Let's do a roll call on the table.
The roll call on the table
On
first?
the table.
Okay, so Misty Cavanaugh.
No.
Tony Space,
Yes.
Adam Townsend,
No.
Amy Cruz,
Yes.
Frank Stevenson,
Yes.
Chad Minzer.
The recommendation is that it's the
My
munis-
recommendation is that it's in the best interest of the city to adopt it, but I don't make the policy, you all make the policy.
that I'm gonna say no.
That motion does not go anywhere. It is a tied motion. Is that correct?
Correct.
So now let's go to the approval. We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Let's do a roll call for that motion.
Misty Cavanaugh,
Yes.
Tony Space,
No.
Adam Townsend,
Yes.
Amy Cruz.
Can I ask a question at this point? I mean, I'm all up for discussing things to get to where we need to be. If that's not gonna change anything, that's what Mr. Evans is here for, to protect the city, and you know what I mean?
We don't know whether further discussion is going to change anything. I mean,
Yeah.
what's 2 weeks is kind of the question.
Following in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, what was my,
Your question is, did you want to pass this resolution, yes or no?
I wanna postpone and have
Okay.
further discussion.
Frank Stevenson
No.
and Chad Minzer.
Yes.
So that motion does not move. It will come back up at a later meeting.
We're gonna put that on the agenda for the next meeting, correct?
It will end
Okay.
up on the,
Yeah.
it has no
Make a
movement.
motion for that, yes.
Okay, yes, I wanna make a motion for it to go on the next meeting. Yes, this does not
Do we need
something
a
that we
motion
need
for
to
that?
wait 6 months
Already
out.
tabled.
It's already
You
tabled,
know.
so it'll go on the next.
Perfect, okay. Sorry for the confusion.
I
Right?
don't know what other information that they need, but, you know.
If you all will please get with Kim. Kim has been handling that piece of it, or get with Joe Evans over this next couple of weeks so that you can get any of your questions squared away before the next meeting, please. All right, now we'll move to the resolution to accept bid for metal building for Police Department Chief Brian.
Yes, these bids had to be opened today because of the bad weather on Friday, so they're not actually, I don't have it on the screen, but I do have it in your packets. Whereas the city of Madisonville opened bids for a metal building for the police department to be constructed on, and the bids were opened today at 10 a.m. And whereas the city of Madisonville received 3 bids, the first bid was from Garrigan Building and Construction of $155,000. The second was from Downey Construction of $129,000, and the third one was from CFM Construction of $124,800. Whereas CFM Construction did not have the bid bond that was required in the specifications, and Downey Construction was the best bid received and met all the specifications that were required by the city of Madisonville. Now therefore be it resolved that the city council accepts and awards the bid to the metal building for the police department in the amount of $129,000 to Downey Construction.
Do we have a motion to approve the resolution to accept the bid for the metal building for the police department for $129,000 to Downey Construction?
Moved.
Have a second.
Second?
Are there any questions?
Assume Frank looked at these.
Frank and Steve, everybody has looked at them, yes.
All the specs from Downey, spacing and everything is all equal on all these.
I wrote the specs on the pre-bid, that was a design build, and they're required to provide structural engineer plans and a state site plan.
So you're comfortable with it? That's all I need to hear.
Only difference, I guess, in the bids is the CFM did not have a bid.
He didn't have a bid bond, and he was missing page 4 of his bidder packet that also included the bonding requirements for the performance bond, which he wasn't aware of, which would be some additional costs, and then insurance and everything based on that page. So out of familiarity with Downey and them having everything in the bid and covered all the aspects of it,
Your recommendation was Downey. Okay.
These are the only bids that we expected to get, because I'm a little hesitant to accept it since it was only open for 6 hours or so.
No, I'm sorry. It was supposed to be an open Friday, the bids were, and I notified everybody that had asked for the specifications.
Okay.
No, the bid had,
Okay,
it was
so they did
advertised.
know about it
No, I'm
before then.
sorry,
Okay.
yeah, it was actually advertised in the paper on,
Okay.
I have to pull my ad right here, but, it was in
You just weren't
January.
accepting them till today.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, we were supposed to accept it on Friday, but because of the weather,
right,
we
okay,
extended it till today.
okay.
It was in the paper on January 21st.
Any other questions? This will be paid for through the proceeds of the sale of the property on South Main, the police department property that we sold on South Main. So if there's no other questions, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, next we have a presentation from Chief John Dunning with the Fire Department. Do we have a handheld for him?
Yes, look right underneath there. You see?
Batteries in.
All right, on December the 10th of 2021, Madisonville Fire Department, along with Grapevine Fire Department, was dispatched to the Flat Creek area in Ehrlichton to begin tornado search and rescue efforts. Upon arriving in the area, fire crews found multiple homes destroyed, and the area was highly devastated. While searching the area on foot, firefighters assisted many residents to safety. While searching the last home that was destroyed, a female occupant was found to be trapped inside the collapsed house. She was heavily pinned inside the structure with her legs trapped between the bathtub and the collapsed roof trusses. Firefighters immediately crawled into the collapsed, unstable structure to gain access to the victim. It was quickly determined that multiple rescue tools would be needed. However, due to the devastation of the area, the fire trucks could not get close to the scene and were located 3/4 of a mile away. Madisonville Police Department Sergeant Sean McCants, along with several firefighters and civilians, made the long trek with the hydraulic rescue tools, airbags, air chisel, air bottles, and saws. This team effort led to the successful extrication of the victim from the collapsed structure. The victim was placed on the fire department ATV and transported to the awaiting medical center ambulance service ambulance. MCAS transported the patient to Baptist Health Deaconess Hospital, where she was treated and survived her injuries. Madisonville Fire Department gives life-saving awards to department personnel who, by their immediate actions, have saved a human life under unusual or extraordinary circumstances. It is clear the following individuals are most deserving of this recognition and are hereby awarded a life-saving award for their heroic actions in the incident outlined above. So I'll call your name. I think Grapevine Fire Department got to run. So Nathan Carlisle. Chief Bailey, you want to come over here?
Yeah, they unfortunately had a structure fire call on Highland Avenue.
Oh,
Never fails.
thank you, sir. Have a- Brian Rice. Hey, here's that letter for the first one. Dylan Baker. Jake Taylor. Justin Slayton. Tyler Fulkerson. Adam Calvert.
Get out of it.
Caleb McGee. Travis Harmon. Picture. Brandon Tao. Kate Eli. Chasten Hancock. Taylor Fincham. Jonathan Young. Matt Browning. Philip Cooper. Sean McCants.
Let's do one more round of applause for everybody that helped. During the time of the tornado, that was some of the toughest times that a lot of us have had to go through. And to see these teams, again, it's all about the team, to see this group of individuals step up and perform under such a stressful time was nothing more than amazing to watch and see happen. And I couldn't be prouder to be a part of it. So thank you all very much for all that you did and continue to do as you serve those that have been affected. So thank you very much. All right, at this time, we have a guest speaker, Mr. Ron Elliott. If you'll just go to the podium, sir.
You're gonna have to speak.
I am here.
You'll speak into that microphone right over there. There you go. That side.
Okay. I am here to discuss Teague Cemetery. I think everyone, including you, Your Honor, got a document that I had printed out and sent to everyone right last week, this Sunday, as a matter of fact. And I wanted to address the council on accepting the cemetery as a donation.
I would like to make a motion that the city accepts the donation and accepts the responsibility for the costs associated with the upkeep of the cemetery. I think that it's of historical significance, and if we're not going to do this, I think that we do need to give you an answer. But I think the historical significance of it as an African American cemetery is important, and that this is something we should do.
There's a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that we need to have a discussion in regards to it. Instead of Mr. Elliott coming and we keep talking about it, but we haven't made a final decision on what we need to do. And I kind of wanted some input from Joe in regards to that. So
It's not really
I know. So
responsive to
yeah,
her motion.
yeah. So how do? So sorry, I'm confusing everybody today.
I'll just address what I know
Please.
about it. Back in November, I believe that's the first time Mr. Elliott brought this situation to our attention, and a couple of other people spoke in favor of it at that time. And I expressed some reservations because from a matter of law, the city cannot spend public funds improving privately owned property. And at that point in time, the ownership of the cemetery was nebulous at best. Much to my surprise, I was able to find a deed to the property, and the last deed was a 1974 deed. And the owner of the property in that period of time has now died, and she was survived by 4 children, one of whom has since died. When I saw Mr. Elliott's email or notification to you all that he was coming to make a presentation tonight, I contacted Mr. Elliott and I said, you know, I need to make sure that the owners of the cemetery are in fact on board, and they will in fact donate it to the city if the city will take over maintenance responsibility. I did have the phone number of a Mrs. Phyllis Clark in Flint, Michigan, and I talked to her on Thursday or Friday sitting at my dining room table just to make sure that that was the family's intention. And she assured me that it was in fact their intention, that if the city would take over maintenance responsibility, she and her 2 siblings would sign a deed to the city, placing ownership in the city's name. So from a legal standpoint, that removed any impediment that I had. I don't know whether we've got any estimates of what it would cost to bring the cemetery up to where we would be proud of it or anything like that. But just from a legal standpoint, Mr. Elliott has brought it to our table that the owners are willing to donate it to the city if the city will assume maintenance responsibility.
But I say something here at this time. Once the city accepts the donation, the cleanup of the cemetery can be handled by the inmates of the Hopkins County Department of Jail, the jail, whatever. I don't see Craig here. He's very closely connected with the gentleman that does this out at the jail, and he said that's what they do. They love to get out and work in old cemeteries, but they cannot maintain it. They can clean it up, get it ready for maintenance, but they cannot maintain it. And that's where I would want the city to come in, just to maintain this little 2-acre cemetery.
Do we have a second on the original motion?
Motion to accept the donation of the cemetery and maintenance of the cemetery.
So that's the original motion. Do we have a second?
Do you have any estimate as to what it will cost to maintain the cemetery? Anybody got any ideas?
I have an idea. I have some friends who cut cemeteries pro bono. This one particular guy, his mother set it up, and he's been cutting it ever since. He cuts several family cemeteries, and he said 2 hours is what a 2-acre lot should take to cut it. So that would be like 2 hours a month, depending upon the grass growth. 4 hours 4 hours a month, 2 hours every 2 weeks, 4 hours a month, and that's like 32, 4 times 8, 32 hours a year.
Was this gentleman willing to do this pro bono, or is he? He's overloaded already.
Plus, he's working about 70, 80 hours a week. I'm not really sure. At $15 an hour, I don't know what the guy's getting paid out there, but I mean,
do we know how many acres we currently have of cemetery? Because we know how much we're paying bi-weekly. It's $8,733. I know that it's not just expenses, but that's the hour, or not the payroll.
Right, and that's the current payroll in the middle of the winter, not in the
So we
peak
could
season.
look at that,
So the total budget that you currently have for cemeteries, I believe, is $385,000 for the 2 cemeteries that we currently maintain.
Those are well over 2 acres.
I do not have the acreage of those, but
I mean,
there is
there's-
270, I think around 270 cemetery plots at the Teague Cemetery. 252.
Capped out. More room.
I'm a trustee of a cemetery, and so I'm very familiar with how this works. And I will tell you that we have a monthly meeting or a yearly meeting, and it happens the first weekend in May every year. And the two things come up every year. You're mowing it too much and you're wasting too much money mowing it, and you're not mowing it enough. And so you go back and forth of when are you maintaining it and where are you not maintaining it. I know that previous administrations have accepted different cemeteries into the city budget, and they continually go to cemeteries, and I think that kind of falls under the Parks and Recreation as well. And so as all those come down, we're paying retirement, we're paying hourly wage and stuff like that. And so I know that other groups, the Hopkins County Jail and then also the Historical Society, have offered to clean up the Teague Cemetery. The issue with them cleaning it up is that a nonprofit has not stepped forward and taken possession of that, because they cannot work on a private person's property. And so that was the big hesitation there. And I think Mr. Elliott has come to us a few times to kind of see if the city would take on that responsibility. I'm very hesitant in that transaction simply because of the annual maintenance and the continual maintenance of a cemetery, but also understand that Mr. Elliott you have went above and beyond and done your due diligence, truly been thorough in your research, and so that's just kind of some of my thoughts on that. I don't know if that helps or hurts anybody.
I'd like to follow up on your comments. I've got hesitations as well. I commend Mr. Elliott for your diligence in pursuing some way to take care of this cemetery. Cemeteries generally have historic value wherever they exist, but the pause that I have is the precedent of the city taking on basically abandoned cemeteries, opening the door to a pattern here, or a precedent. The city is currently involved with I guess 3 parts of one and 2 other cemeteries. I don't know when that happened in the past. Certainly preceded me, but the issue there that I see that is different, if those cemeteries still have available plots, and there's administration involved with that to have funding for its ongoing maintenance. It offsets some of those expenses. Teague Cemetery is a cemetery that's full. It's strictly a maintenance issue. And as Mr. Mincer, Councilman Mincer mentioned, he's involved with a group that is responsible for a cemetery. My thought is, with the energy and interest that there is to form a simple nonprofit to oversee that work of the maintenance and care of that cemetery, to which then the resources and volunteers that you've identified just even today would be in a position to enter in to assist with that. But just for the city to basically we're looking at compensating for an abandonment of a private cemetery. It was a business-run operation, and it troubles me that we would make a precedent of taking that over for the city. We could facilitate and promote the move to form an entity to take that responsibility, but I just have trouble seeing that as the proper province of the city.
is it proper for the city to do that? Volunteers are great. It's been cleaned up before under volunteers, but volunteers don't stick around. You know, second month, third month, fourth month, everybody says, well, I've volunteered for 4 months, it's on somebody else in the next 15 years. You know, the next thing you know, 15 years has gone by and it's back up to a jungle. We need some definite money to take care of that cemetery once the inmates clean it up. I mean, they got their own chipper and all the shovels and axes there. They can clean it up to the maintenance point. That's when the problem comes, maintaining it. And I've been here, I was out there with Brenda Watson in the early 90s. Cleaned up, maintained a little bit. 15 years later, another group from North is out there cleaning it up, opening it up to the maintenance point. Couple of months of maintenance, and now we're looking at 15 years to this day. The maintenance part is, the problem. It is the problem. But we're talking 2 acres. We're talking 4 hours a month, 32 hours a year to maintain a 2 acre, and the deed says more or less. 2 acres more or less. Could be a little bit less, could be a little bit more. But from my estimation and the information I've gathered, it takes, I'm not going to say how it was put to me. I'll say, if you can't cut 2 acres cemetery in 2 hours, you're goofing off. Now, there are people that can be hired, but I'm sure that a couple of guys, you know, spending from the cemetery department, parks department, however, out there on Center Street, it would be no problem for them. They're used to doing it. They know how to do it. They know how to maintain it quickly and get back to the station.
So the maintenance ongoing, indeed, there's an expense to it, and that's again, I go back to forming a small nonprofit for overseeing that, and part of that oversight is, in fact, being a nonprofit entity that is empowered to collect donations, contributions for that very work to raise funds.
Yes, I agree with taking donations, all kinds of funds, and if the city had it, those donations could still be gathered to replace headstones. This is a historic event that we're talking about, opening this cemetery. People like cemeteries. I've already talked to tourism department here, and they said, yes, people do go to cemeteries. If they come from out of town, if they're in town and go out there, they might stop and buy a Coke or a hamburger or have dinner, spend the night. There are clubs throughout the United States that visit cemeteries. This is a new cemetery that is being opened up. And I will bet dollars to donuts that people will come to see it.
So I've still yet to hear a second on the motion. We have a motion to accept it into the city, but I have not heard a second. So I'll ask one last time do we have anyone willing to give a second to the motion? In which case, this motion does not move forward at this time. Thank you, Mr. Elliott. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your.
To say.
My other question I have is, when we assume those other properties that were the other cemeteries, we took we set a precedence to do that, even though they do have places that we can sell, but eventually those are gonna run out too. I mean, past our time. So, I mean, has anybody come to you and offered to help? I mean, you know, I mean, what other avenues have you looked at besides the city?
As far as ownership,
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, this is a property that's personally owned. Do the people that own that property have, what's the word am I looking for? You know, it's a property within the city. You know, they need to maintain that property. Do we have anything?
I mean, is it not any different from any other nuisance property that we take possession of? I mean, at some point when it is not maintained, it does become a nuisance
The property owner have
Yeah,
a
and so we would
responsibility.
normally take possession of that, so.
okay,
How is that any
I might
different?
like to add that the
Well, yeah.
owners, these 3 surviving children, had no idea that they owned a cemetery. And when I called them, I had to convince them that I was not a scammer.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. And they did trust me. They did go back into their family records and found out that one of their uncles owned a cemetery and it worked down to be theirs. They had no idea. Until last year, no one had gotten in contact with them. So they had no idea what was going on. There was no person to get in contact with on an abandoned property, you know, deal. They are all retired. I'm elderly, but I have a feeling they're older than I am.
I mean, I guess as the city, do they, as the owners of that property, have a responsibility to maintain that at a certain level as being in the city?
So it is not a residential property or a commercial property and
Can't see it from the street, it's back in the
Exactly.
woods, so
back in the woods, so
Okay.
it's,
we work off of a complaint basis.
Okay.
To me, it seems like any church in the city limits of Mansfield could take the property. It's more in their keeping and then have new members take care of it if they're willing to donate to somebody. I mean,
I think it's only of historical significance to the city of Madisonville because it's not tied to any certain church. And so that's why essentially the only avenue is the city. We're the only ones who have a vested interest in that because it is our city. So I think there's no one in the market of buying cemeteries that are full. So this is essentially the only viable option is for the city to take it and upkeep it. Otherwise, we're going to continue to fall into the cycle of every 15 years it gets cleaned up. It's not taken care of. It becomes a nuisance property. And that's why I think the city should do the right thing, essentially. No, we're not under an obligation to do that, but I think that's the right thing to do.
Well, it's not the only option. That's what I just said. That there's a clear option is for organizing community interest in forming a nonprofit to solicit funds and organize the care that you said is really not all that complicated at a 2-acre property. In terms of it being an abandoned property, yeah, we have procedures for assuming control of abandoned properties through process over time, but those properties are not liabilities long term for the city. There's something that we just did, in fact, today with 3 properties that ended up in the city. We declared them surplus and we sold them. They're not something we take on as an ongoing liability.
I think one of those properties, though, we've had for over 30 years, right, Kim? The Hamilton Drive, we've owned it for over 30 years, and we did assume it as liability in that case.
Well, perhaps that was because of a failure to recognize what we could do with it to sell it, but that point well taken. I think that's what we're trying to do is to begin to look at what do we have on the books and let's move it. Let's get rid of it. You know, we've more activity here in the last few years of not just having these things and having an expense incurred to them, but to get it back into circulation or get it off the city's liability.
the original motion has failed for lack of second. Are there any additional motions related to this property? Mr. Elliott, we thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your hard work on this project, and we look forward to working with you in the future on it.
Not any motions that are pending.
There are no motions that are pending. Is that a no?
No.
All right. At this time, we do have a proclamation. The proclamation reads, whereas Kentucky Humanities, an independent nonprofit affiliate organization of the National Endowment for Humanities, was established in 1972, whereas Kentucky Humanities is devoted to bringing humanities programs to communities across the Commonwealth and recognizes the need to build civic engagement, promote literacy for all ages, and to honor the history, literature, philosophy, and values by which we live in all Kentucky towns, including the city of Madisonville. Whereas Kentucky Humanities is dedicated to telling Kentucky's story because we can all learn from the stories of others that when taken together shape our communities, our counties, our regions, and our unique Kentucky culture and heritage. And whereas Kentucky Humanities has made more than 2,600 grants to organizations in Kentucky totaling more than $9 million in 50 years of service to the Commonwealth. And whereas Kentucky Humanities has funded more than 15,100 events since they began tracking the events in 1987 through the state of Kentucky, including Speakers Bureau presentations, Kentucky Chautauqua dramas. I wanted to make sure I got that right. Kentucky Reads, book discussions, and other special events. And whereas Kentucky Humanities has brought 10 Smithsonian traveling exhibitions to Kentucky for a total of 64 six-week tours, reaching a reported audience of more than 77,000. And whereas Kentucky Humanities has published more than 48 issues of Kentucky Humanities Magazine and distributed more than 565,000 copies to the citizens of Kentucky. And whereas Kentucky Humanities has published 14 new books for new readers with the University Press of Kentucky and has issued more than 75,000 copies of these books to adult emergent readers in Kentucky. And whereas Kentucky Humanities has assumed the management of Kentucky Book Fair, now called the Kentucky Book Festival, the longest running and premier book festival in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, now celebrating its 40th year. And whereas Kentucky Humanities has sponsored more than 280 primetime family reading programs, reaching more than 4,200 families and more than 14,000 people in the Commonwealth. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Kevin Cotton, Mayor of the City of Madisonville, Kentucky, do hereby recognize and congratulate Kentucky Humanities for 50 years of service to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. With that being said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Do we have a second? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.